weary. Work together, children, don't you get weary. Great camp meeting in the promised land. We find work and never get tired. Work and never get tired. Work and never get tired. Great camp meeting in the promised land. So work together, children, don't you get weary. Work together, children, don't you get weary. Work together, children, don't you get weary. Great camp meeting in the promised land. Great camp meeting in the promised land. Great camp meeting in the promised land. But how are the children to do today? It's glad you can see all of the children there. It's the time. It's the live for once a week. But they're going to go to Geechee Nation. But it's just the leave us out of that. Because we, every nation, Jacksonville, and things like that. But no, so we're on the day now. But right now, we children, there, right here, in Lincolnville. Because it come down here, or walking things like that. Start business and all the rest of things like that. But he couldn't do all that by himself. He ain't been doing dry on soap. Half of doing by the rest of people and things like that. So even now, one of the kind of up, I'm gonna look on everything ain't flying up. But I don't even go on so we had all kind of rest of people that were going and things like that. Some, yeah, we ain't quite never there. But we know say, some and children, been out in Gullah and shit. So that's the same way we ancestors said. When the Igbo, Mandinka, Malinke, Yoruba, Gullah, Geechee, Mendi, Temni, Ifi, Iberian, but them get it together. But then, you see, Adisto, Kusabo, Cree, and when they get down young, all of them were in a fighting way. They'll get in, 100 children called, like right. They suffer, cracky teeth, they call them Seminole. They're gonna say this your what? Come from the word Cimarron. Same way, Maroon come from that same one. But they say they're exiled. But we say they're in the unconquered one. So in them they are, none of this shit that they taught. Wilderness, but they all truly down in their place with that great camp meeting and things like that. So now, when people are coming here now, they study what? See, because of all what I'm doing, because of what it looked like. But like Yona, they're going to say, I don't go in there. That's too long. Now my flag will start to lay tracks. Bless you. But then people get you faster. Then try to take horseback and try to take carriage or through the wood and things like that. But now, the same way people been to say, I ain't know about that. Back Yona, they'll say that again. Florida? I ain't know about that. I know, you ain't see anything like that because of wilderness. And see like that because of water. So we crack we teeth, we say the water to bring, the water won't take we back. But we ain't been over been going, we like this shit. So plenty of 100 children, whatever 100 different thing like that. 100 probably come here for the same thing. It's because of the water. So now, all these years that they've done this conference called Keeping History Above Water, just because they say that's what they're doing, didn't mean they haven't. Didn't mean that they could stop the sea levels from rising. So as I said to you in Gullah Geechee, yeah, there was a reason before that people looked at Florida and said, well, I don't know about going in. And now people are looking at it again going, well, I don't know about going in. But they're looking at it for a different reason now. Before it was landscape, now it's water on top of the landscape. Should I go? Shouldn't I go? If I go visit, when should I go visit? Oh, before hurricane season? Well, when now it's hurricane season. Does it actually stop? Or is it just the 5th season? What's going on? We're not sure. The same way, this guy, who every other thing in this town is named for, Flagler, wasn't sure that all of what he was doing was going to work. But that didn't stop him from attempting to do it. That didn't stop him from laying tracks to connect people and connect them faster than anybody else had really thought was going to be possible through a wilderness area and a swamp. So as much money as you spend on Florida, it still is nothing but a big old swamp. It's a peninsula that's a big old swamp. And then people get mad when they find alligators walking around. What? This is their home, that's not ours. Okay? But here it is. They walk up on land and then we go, whoa. But what about when water rolls on land? What do? Do we go, whoa? Or do we do things like, well, somebody get a truck of dirt and put it in there. I mean, I think if we do that, we can just stop this. Right? Anybody else seen them trucks like me? Mm-hmm. Where people think they can play God and think that as long as we keep piling dirt in, then we're going to overcome this issue. Well, guess what? Doesn't that dirt have to come from somewhere else? So if you dig up the dirt in one place, right? What do you create when you dig up the dirt? A hole, right? And isn't there still this wet stuff that comes down every now and then? What do you call that stuff? Rain, which is made of what? Water. So now we create a hole over here full of what now? Water. And then do we really think the land around it eventually isn't going to do what? Sink. Florida's known for what? Sinking and sinkholes, right? So sometimes maybe we need to just sink down and sit down like that lady there need to find a spot in the circle and sit down. Come on, you gotta get in the circle. The motto spread out right there. So sometimes we need to sink down and settle in to really thinking about what's here. Why is it here? Was it naturally that way? Or did we disrupt the ecological balance by thinking that if I just put some more dirt over there, it's going to stop the problem that's coming from up here, right? We're actually now dug from one place, put this over here, and left that community with a problem over there. Because now when it rains too hard, that water overflows out of that hole. Or their children could run and fall in that hole. So we can't keep thinking that by digging one place and planting the dirt in another place or the rocks another place is what we all need to do as a resolution to this problem that has people wondering, Florida? Should I go there or not? Now everybody, of course, on a beautiful sunny day wants to come to our coast. The Gullah Geechee Nation starts in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and goes all the way down just above here. I told y'all that in Gullah, but you look like you didn't get it, so I'm going to tell you now. This way, looks like y'all understand this one, right? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Cómo está? Okay, and just check. All right, so this works for you. So when people come down, they end up in Jacksonville, Florida. Of course, the first thing is like, it's a peninsula. So there's shoreline someplace. Where is it? Get to the beach. And y'all start stripping your clothes off before y'all even get anywhere near the shore, just looking all kind of way. And it's like, hold on, y'all ain't there yet. And then when you do get there, it's like, wow, this is nice. I haven't heard anyone ever tell me they got to a beach and went, oh, this is disgusting, yeah. Unless it was like at a place like Coney Island where there was a whole bunch of garbage. People don't usually get to beaches and then want to run away from them. In fact, there's something about the water that draws you to it and makes you want to be there, makes you want to stay there. And hence comes the problem, because human beings don't get it, that you're supposed to go to the water to nourish your soul, but then go back away from it. So the water's trying to tell you that now. It's like, I asked y'all not to put holes in me, but you started plugging holes by putting pilings in because you couldn't understand your house didn't belong here. So every couple of hours, I'm going to come in and take something from underneath that house. I'm going to come back and take some more from under that house. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to take some more from under that house. So the same way we dug that hole and left them with a problem over there, don't you think the natural tide coming and going takes something away? It doesn't ever leave holes. It leaves you with the sand dispersed in another way, naturally. As one might say nowadays, come on in, brother, there's a seat right over here. One might say organically. The natural flow of things. Humans have disrupted. And now we sit there and go, somebody ought to do something about this. Well, who's the somebody? Because very likely the person who dug that hole left after they did it. They sold the property to somebody else. So they said, well, we do know eventually this made just what y'all said. Think. But we would have already gotten what we need by the time that happened. So, it'll be up to them now. And that them who bought it usually goes to another them who sells you a thing called insurance. Right? Because you think by that word, right? Doesn't that word make you feel confident? Because they say, I'm insured, right? Insured sounds like assured that something's not going to happen. But really, aren't you paying for a policy in the event that something does happen? And it's usually not something good, right? Think of it. Life insurance, house insurance, homeowners insurance, car insurance. Do we buy any of those things for good reasons? No, because we're thinking something bad what? Is going to happen. She said not even could happen. She said it is going to happen. Okay. I would say it may happen. Okay. I'm big on speaking things into existence. So it may happen, and in the event that it does, we want to be protected. But how many people think insurance companies like for you to submit a claim? Everybody, you're laughing. She's shaking her head no. But that's the business they're in, right? Then they sell it to you and say if something happened, they would do what? Pay. But now when it comes time to what? Pay. Do they hurry up and do this? No. They do this, right? Who? What? Prove you have a policy. Huh? What do you mean it happened? How did it happen? Well, we're going to send a guy out and take pictures. Right? And I don't mean Kwame. I'll have the guy come out and take pictures, right? And then they're going to do what? Assess what happened. And then they'll determine whether they're liable or not. Whether you caused it or somebody else. And guess when they don't do this? Anybody have the words for me? 3 words that they use that they don't pay? There we go. Act of God. And didn't I just get through saying humans try to act like they are God? Figuring if we take something from one spot, move it over here, we solved all the problems of the world, when actually, no. Maybe what we need to do is gather along that shoreline at the beach and just do like their elders or crack your teeth and tell we tarry with one another and be good branch on. So sit down. Tune in. In scriptures, it tells us study the ants. But sometimes we need to do more than just study the ant. The ant is just symbolic. Study nature.
Okay, take care.
Study how the natural flow of things go. And how it is that in the areas where we don't clear cut the trees, the people don't have as many problems. And I live in a place like that, and most of the homeowners don't pay for insurance. And you'd say, what? Yeah, they can't afford that extra bill. So they have the faith that if there is an act of God, it will be a positive one and not a negative one. And fortunately, for 400 years on the Sea Islands that go from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida, we've survived numerous hurricanes and majority of Gullah Geechee homes that were built in our traditional architectural style, and as you would say at the institution, the vernacular architecture of our area. All right? We have been able to literally use this other word that we often hear now, sustain ourselves and sustain the edifices that were there. But guess what's happening now? All that new stuff that people have dug out a spot, clear cut the trees, piled in the dirt, piled in the rocks, built all these condos and all these places in Charleston in the last 2 years and had to move everybody back out of them because they said the structural integrity has already been compromised. They hadn't even sustained any hurricanes yet. And they've had to move people out of at least 2 of these entire complexes. And but who did they displace before they even built those? They displaced Gullah Geechee sites and businesses and people to build what they said was necessary, because all these people that keep coming to the coast now don't want to just go take a nice look at the water. They want to live. And no matter what us, as they call us, emotional natives say about where you shouldn't build, they keep on building. So that sinkhole thing is not just here in Florida. A place that most of y'all have probably watched on television within the past, what was that, 2-3 weeks, where folks are doing that. Where am I talking about? It's an island. There we go. Say it louder. Hilton Head. These guys knew what I was talking about. They're trying to act like they don't. They probably was down there playing. And here it is. Hilton Head Island is in the same county that I'm from, St. Helena Island, South Carolina. When they built what's called the Cross Island Expressway, it was literally built for what the last word is, an expressway, to get you quickly across the island, to get you into all the gated areas and resorts. Rushed you through the native Gullah Geechee community. We said, don't build that, because that's not going to be sustainable, especially where you're putting it. Oh, y'all want to know what you're talking about? I studied engineering, but I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, then. Here it is. It gets built. They do all the hoopla. Oh, we've opened the Cross Island Expressway. And in less than a month or so, newspaper headlines, the Cross Island Expressway is being shut down. Why? It's a sinkhole. Really? We have those in South Carolina? We thought it belonged to Florida. But again, why? They created it. Remember? Y'all said if you dig, you create a what? A hole. And y'all said it's likely to what? Sink. So if we knew that, basic commoners that we are, then why would people who are getting paid multi-millions of dollars to engineer something not recognize the same thing? Because they're not necessarily studying the science of the lay of the land. They're studying the mathematics behind getting paid. And what they're doing is not an act of God, but they feel like all their science has already told them enough that we can overcome anything that God might do here. We can put this here, make this money, and let's get out of here. They'll deal with it when we go. Because they're moving on to the next project. They're moving on to the next city. They're moving to the next place. I've actually spoken for the homeowners, the Home Builders Association. This national conference was on Hilton Head of them. And I told them, this destruction here is your fault. They had me speak during the banquet. I don't know who told them to do that. But suddenly the fork stopped clicking. Okay? It's your fault. So I figured, the audience would hurry, eat their food, and leave the room. But actually, several of the men came to me and thanked me for what I said. And they said, you were right. I don't live here anymore. It's too crowded. I moved. So now, if the people building this stuff feel like that, and they agree that it's too much, then when will we get the rest of us to realize we have to find a balance and not continue to think that taking something from one place and piling it in another is going to balance things back out, because that's not the natural order. That's not organic. That's just us orchestrating stuff. Basically, they say trying to throw it at the ball and just seeing what sticks, right? But if we sat and we studied nature, we studied the shoreline, we studied the natural tides, we start realizing that, hey, wait a minute now, the scientists might have something right, because that tide didn't used to come all the way to me sitting here now. 5 years ago, that tide was stopped back there where that wall is. And I could sit up here all day, and I had this nice shaded tree here, and now this poor tree don't look like he's gonna be here much longer because I can see its roots now. What tree can survive with its root system exposed? So we've started seeing the sand pull out, and people start wondering, well, why is that happening? But then we see on either side of areas that are nature preserves in the Gullah Geechee Nation that people have allowed zoning for gated areas. And before those gated areas were there, we never saw any of the trees' roots. The trees sustained themselves in the soil because no one was pushing the dirt around and making holes and bring the water falling in the holes and then it overflowing and then pushing dirt in places where it shouldn't be and pulling dirt from where it shouldn't be. So then scientists and engineers said, well, let's put what I thought was a gross word, groins on the beach. I said, I got a beach gonna get a groin? What kind of craziness? Y'all got these drinks called something on the beach, now you putting groins on the beach? What are y'all talking about? And they were like, no, Queen, no. What is this? Perversion. They're like, no. We build these things into it so they'll stop the sand from moving. I said, it'll stop it from moving where? Because whatever sand stays between those two, what's going to happen on the opposite side? Then they do this. Like, come on. What's going to happen? Well, yeah, you're technically right. I'm technically right about what? When we put the groins like this, then it'll capture the sand and hold it in this area. But you are right. On these sides here, it's probably going to look like it's going to diminish a little bit. Probably. So in other words, there's going to be holes on this side and piles in here. Something like that. Scientists suddenly get very technical when they're talking to me. Something like that? Or exactly like that. So we've watched them put those in. Doesn't do it. Then you hear people come down and protest. We want seawalls. Give us seawalls. We want to put those up. What? No, we're not zoned for you to put a seawall in. And nobody has the money to finance your seawall for you to protect your 100 houses in your gated private area while everybody else has to deal with the coastline problem. What do you mean? Rezone us now. We want a seawall. We'll pay for it. Not going to happen. Because you put the seawall in your spot and then it's going to cause harm on the other side. We don't care about that. We have to protect our investment. And guess what happens? When they say we have to protect our investment now, that literally is happening because remember the ones that we were paying? They start realizing, wait a second. Every year, these people in this area are coming to us filing a claim. We're paying out more than they paid us in premiums now. That's not the way this game works. We're supposed to make more of them than we pay to them. So we better reevaluate where they're located. So all of you here, love you. Thank you for having paid us for 10 years, but we're dropping your policy. Why? Because you're zoned in a flood zone. You know what? My house, I built the house here. When I built the house here, y'all didn't say anything. It's the same thing. You rush down to the county. Did you guys change my zoning? What is going on? How am I in a flood zone now? Ma'am, calm down. Because if you see here on your plat, you are zone V, and V, what do you mean V? V is the letter we use for flood. Well, why not use F? I don't know, ma'am, but the V zone is flood zone, and that was already on your deed. It's already on your plat. But I had insurance, and me and everybody in our neighborhood, we don't have insurance now. Ma'am, we don't handle insurance here. This is the zoning office. So, well, what am I supposed to do? Ma'am, I guess you just won't have insurance on your house. If you can check with another insurance company and see if they'll insure your house. So now you go to other insurance companies and they check with him. And they say, oh no, we don't want you either. Beautiful home though, but hope you're all right. you're going to have to take care of it yourself. So now what are we left with? We're left with homes that some people went on and abandoned because they were upside down in the mortgage anyway. So they said, well, I can't insure it. I can't afford to keep paying for it. I'm going to leave it alone. And then somebody didn't know better, decided to build on that last 2 or 3 build out lots. They had to dig, created some more holes, didn't know that was going to shift the foundation that was on this house that was already overhead. The first little storm comes in, it's not even a hurricane, it's a tropical storm, that house starts doing this toward the water. So now we have lawsuits that environmental organizations are filing against homeowners associations and individual property owners who have left these homes to fall in the ocean. And when they fall in the ocean, now don't want to take any responsibility for the building. But before you said you wanted to protect your investment. Well, that's your investment that's now not protecting the rest of us who have a right to walk that shoreline, who have a right to fish those waterways, who have a right to be out there using the environment in a way that will be balanced and fair to all of us. And now because your house fell in the ocean, our fishermen's boats could capsize. But you say, but I just can't do anything. I couldn't do anything else with the home. So well, it's still your name on the deed. So now there are lawsuits going on one side, insurance companies not giving people insurance on the other side, and people leaving us who are the natives there to deal with all this destruction that they brought in. Because guess why? The natives are not having this problem. We don't build on the shoreline. But nobody thought that 400 years of knowledge mattered until these kind of conferences. All of a sudden, hey, keeping history above water. There's a group of the people that have that funny talk that they do. They have been on the water for about 400 years. How did they manage to stay there? Maybe we need to talk to them. No, you can't talk to us, because remember, we're the emotional natives. That although we're lettered, we have degrees, we've studied engineering. I created a bridge when I went to Virginia Tech. We had to do bridges out of toothpicks. I created a bridge that did not break when they put it under pressure. My bridge continued, the bottom of it continued to curve, but still wouldn't break. They continued to add pressure. It continued to do that. It did not break. They did that until the thing started looking like a boat instead of the bridge I had given them. And they said, okay, it's enough. Take it off. They said, we have never seen this. And all the years that we make engineering students do this, we've never seen anybody whose bridge just simply does not break at all under pressure. But yet, I don't know anything about saying to you, that's not going to be sustainable on the coast. You shouldn't build that there. So now that things are underwater, people are underwater in these mortgages, can't get insurance, because the water literally is coming in every day at higher levels than it ever used to. It's coming in further than it ever used to. It's sucking out faster than it ever used to. The tropical storms, the hurricanes are coming in, seem like more intensely than they ever used to. They're bigger and bigger and bigger, so their cats are meowing even louder and louder and louder. When they say there used to be a cat, I never remember categories. I remember when they started naming storms. I just knew I lived through this storm, named this one named this one named this. Now they come with, but cat. I said, what are you bringing cats with them now too? I got pets too, but the storm don't need no cat. Why I got a cat? But then they're like, no. We started realizing all these storms ain't alike. I said, I can live through them. I can tell you every storm is not alike. They said, yeah, but that's a measure of intensity. Whether it's a 1, a 2, a 3, a 3. Remember the owl, right? Y'all remember? Ow! Okay, now it's like, I threw you off. I threw you off for a minute, just testing to see if you were awake. So yeah, the 1, the 2, the 3, and then I thought it stopped there. Then all of a sudden it was like, no, there's 4. And then in the last 5 years, it became 5, And someone told me the other day that the storms we experienced last year just got recategorized. I said, I didn't think they could do that after the fact. They said, yeah, the scientists realized, they told people that was a Cat 4. That was really a Cat 5 when that hurricane hit last year. And I'm like, which one? I'm at the point now where the alphabet soup of names is blending into each other. I can't remember Maria from Irma, from Sandy, from David to Floyd, to all these ones that I lived with, because they're coming like this. But while they're coming like this, we're here going, we need to do something. Who is the we? At some point, somebody will figure it out. Who's the somebody? You're doing that? Well, it's doing this? So yes, the intensity needs to not only build amongst the storms, but we need to become that storm that intensifies the work that we do collectively. If you realize something about a hurricane, it's the same thing like it's circular. That's why when we get together in a circle, there's power there. But it's only if we harness that power. If you realize something about the eye, the thing you see with, right? The eye of a storm has to be what? It's an old word. Open. Open, and there's another one. The word I used before we said no. Organized. If that eye of that storm is not organized, the Weather Channel people aren't that concerned. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna keep an eye on it. But when the eye starts looking back at them, that's when they get concerned. And they start pointing out to you that, hey, wait a minute, it is wide like this, but if we still keep calibrating and this all organizes and this starts to get closer in and you start to see that real circular formation in the middle, that's when they start being concerned. That's when you start hearing the numbers. That's when they start calculating somewhere in meteorology. They sit there and go, well, wait a minute. If it does this, it's going to be a Cat 1. But if the winds do this and the pressure does this, it's going up to a 2. If it does some more, it's going to a 3. But if we get against something that opposes it, what do they say will happen? What happens to a storm? When it comes in, but it has some opposition.
It disorganizes.
It starts disorganizing and what?
Fades.
Fades, right? So they say it starts being disorganized, and you want that in that sense because you can break it apart. They said shears, right? So you have a lovely blouse there, but you wouldn't want me to grab a thread and yank it out because then your clothing will also do that. Sheer, right? Unless you're that type of girl that I mean, we are in Florida. Okay, folks don't like a lot of clothes down here. But, if you start to yank on things and pull on them, they start to shear. So people yank on your nerves. Don't they stop? She's like, yes. Queen, you know something. Right? Start shearing away at your nerves. Start messing with your mind, right? Start shearing away at your strength. And that's what you want to do to a storm, and I think we could do that if we stop being disorganized. Again, study the environment. And it's telling us some things. You want to come up against me? Watch what I'm doing to you. I come together in a circle. I get organized. And I start to see what I can go after. I can go after all that stuff I done told y'all not to build into me. All right? Mother Earth is like, I'm going to move some of this stuff out the way now so that y'all get a lesson. Don't put nothing back here. I took this stuff out. You put all these pilings in, I'm taking them out. We don't get that lesson. Somebody else says, oh, that's okay. We can put it back there. We'll just put it up higher. Really? So you're putting it higher because of what? What do they think they're accomplishing by building buildings higher? Because they feel what's going to happen? Storm surge and sea level. Same thing we're here to talk about, right? They're trying to do what? Keep things where? Above water. But hurricanes are not just consisting of water. What else happens with a hurricane though? Wind. So again, as an engineer, I'm like, okay, if we move from the water, we can't move out of the way of the wind. So the higher we go, do we not realize about the integrity of the building? The higher we go, that's something to look inside there. It looks pretty whenever we go up high and can look over all the land, but when the wind starts blowing against it, if you're in the top floor of the building, you know that too. So now we've said, well, you know, we engineer it so that we get some sway in there, like we do with skyscrapers and so on, but there ain't but so much sway you can put in there. What I'm trying to do is sway you to realize we need to organize and think this thing through in a better manner than we've been doing, and start to look at more materials and productive ways that we can put things inland and away from the coast, so that we can stop just spending out money and stop being stressed out, which is only going to cause you to spend more money, and in particular in the pharmaceutical industry, so that they can keep you trying to not have your nerves steered off, while they actually give you something that'll make you have a heart attack and possibly cause you to be suicidal when you weren't suicidal, while your left eye falls out of the it back in, because you know it'll only in some cases also affect your right arm. You know those little disclaimers on the market. So my thing is, well, again, where I live in the Gullah Geechee Nation, we don't have a bunch of people popping pills. We don't have a bunch of people sitting around all day talking about war is me. And yet they lived through all these hurricanes and didn't evacuate. 400 years, homes that are still there from the 1800s, historic sites that are there from that time frame, that we can say, yeah, that was built in 17 something, that was built in 18 something, this was built in 1905, and they're like, but y'all had to rebuild it? No, we fixed the roof several times. Gee, the windows, those got blown out by storm such and such and this and that, but the building's still standing? Yes, we said, we done been there, we in the Guayna with Toto. And so once again, why not study the people who are indigenous to the land and hear them and see what they're doing? Get in a circle with them and figure out how we can organize ourselves so that we can protect the cultural heritage that's there. Because there's never any insurance to protect that in the first place. Nobody pays us when we get displaced. Whether it's an act of God, and normally it's not. It's usually an act of somebody in a boardroom someplace that figures where we live would be of more value for them to build something in than it is for us to live there. So here it is, the taxes go up, people move out. And often move to places they have no desire to live. And then our coast is opened up for more of these things that are just for our entertainment, but they're not sustainable. And so now one looks at cities like this packed with layers of history that are now being concerned about what can we do. The buildings are already built, so can we lift them or not? When keeping history above water was first done, it was done in Rhode Island and Newport. And they took us to some buildings that were historic, but that had been raised. They had lifted them by several feet and added stones under the bottom to make it look like it was the original foundation, original structure on it and everything. That was controversial because now the historic preservationists said, well, you are now bothering the integrity of the historic structure by trying to protect it from the water, from the surge, from all of this. And guess what? They protected maybe the first and the second floors of buildings for a little while, but then they took us in a basement. And I said, why is it so noisy down here? I expect it to be quiet. It's not a whole get. And I'm like, what is that? It's a pump in the corner. And the pump is there trying to do what y'all think? Keep the water out of the basement. They say, yeah, because the tide's coming in now. Really? They said, yeah. I said, notice the water's right down there. They said, yeah. So when high tide comes in, I said, outside, high tide comes in here too. They said, right. They said, look at the line on the wall. And there was actually a water line on the wall now because the water kept coming in. So as pretty as the structure looked on the outside, as much as they thought they had solved the problem, they hadn't. They masked the problem. The same way that digging that dirt from here to move it over here does. It masks the problem while we sit there going, it's okay for now, right? It's lovely outside now. I don't have to prepare my hurricane kit. It's not the season yet. What do you mean emergency management is going to come check? Why are they looking in that building over there right now? They're looking because they're a little bit concerned, but this neighborhood now, because see that hole that was over there? Doesn't cause a sink. Your house is right next to it. And from the outside, your facade of your house is looking like it's starting to tilt a little bit. So the county is going to fine you if you don't fix that. If you're looking at this and you're giving that face, like, what? I didn't do anything to my house. Somebody over there did something to the integrity of the earth that caused this house to shift. They caused this guy and his friends to show up from downtown. And now we told them they're in a flood zone. You're like, I'm not in one. Yeah, but ma'am, because they dug out a lagoon over here that wasn't supposed to be dug. Your house is shifting. And now what? She might do like the others did, right? Let's sell it. Let's get out. Before she has to deal with that. But how many places can you run to? So if you say, well, let's leave the coast. Let's all leave the coast. Well, there's fires in other places, right? Well, okay, all right, well, let's don't go to California. But Florida has fires, right? We forget that. We start to get a traumatic amnesia that after it's over, we don't want to think about it again. So we don't think about that we shouldn't build back in that same spot again because, I mean, so what? That storm's over. That was what do they call it? 100-year event that now's happening every year. Y'all's calculations are off by 100. That's not good. Take it from me, I'm a mathematician. That's not good. So we can no longer sit here and say, well, somebody else is going to take care of that. I rest assured, like in the case of insurance, that somebody else is going to take care of that. It's not up to somebody else, it's up to us. So what we did in the Gullah Geechee Nation is we listened to these people, we listened to these reports, we listened to people talking scientifically about something that we've lived through so many times. We watched these people engineer things that we knew would not continue to stand. We don't have a word sustainability in Gullah Geechee culture. We don't have a word resilience in Gullah. We don't have those words, but we learned what it meant. And then people started telling us, well, that is you all. It's no wonder you don't have a word for it, because it's you. I said, yeah, it's interesting to say that. I guess it's true. They said, so what are y'all doing? Living? How? Traditionally, same way our ancestors did, because quite naturally, they built here before people had to come in and check whether the house was all right for you to get a certificate of occupancy and the house was still here. They knew something. So we're going to just keep following that pattern that y'all call it vernacular. We're going to keep our traditional knowledge, our traditional ecological knowledge that said don't clear cut all the trees and you live in a hurricane zone. Those trees' roots keep that soil in place so that you won't have the water going where it shouldn't go and the sand being pulled out of where it needs to stay. These things help us. These are the things that we need that are real simple things, but then scientists go, it can't be that easy. Right, Kate? So scientists.
Some are guilty.
Some are guilty of that. It can't be that simple, right? But then you have the scientists that go, But you know, maybe they are onto something. It maybe is that simple. But we have to study it first. If we put forth a hypothesis, it's just theoretical, we need to prove that hypothesis to be true. But proof that we've been there 400 years, you don't have that already? It's like, not in the language we need. So, let's get funding, you know that word always comes into play, and let's send a team in to study that area. He's laughing already, sound like some words y'all know. Let's study that area and let's see if there's something different about the geology there. Let's think about the building structures there. Let's see how things are engineered there. Well, how about the part about the people who live there? Is there anywhere in the study where you plan to talk to them? We don't really do that. We're going to come in and do water samples, and we're going to take photographs, and we're going to do PowerPoint presentations. But you're not going to talk to the people. Not unless we have to. A lot of us as scientists are that way. We do better with numbers and computers and in cold labs than we do talking to other people. So then in comes another group of folks who they kind of enjoy talking to people till people don't want to talk to them anymore. Academics who are not scientists. Or some of them call themselves soft scientists, but us who are hard scientists don't consider them scientists at all. So we have others who come in and say, well, I'm an anthropologist. So you're going to go back and interpret what we said instead of write what we actually said then. Well, I'm a sociologist, and you going to come in here with some census data, not realizing that we do not fill out census forms. So that's going to be inaccurate from the start, again, like that 100-year event that happens every year. Well, we use, if we use ethnography, that would help, because then we could talk to y'all. Why do you think you should talk to us in the beginning? We're the ones who know the literal lay of the land. So in comes some folks who say, well, you know, we don't just come and take pictures and all that. We come in and do GIS mapping. You said GPS? Because you just said GIS. No, it's GIS. What is this GIS stuff? It's geospatial. What is that? What y'all want? It's like, well, if you would walk me around and you would show me certain areas, I can actually use this device and capture where we're actually located, and then I can go back and create a story map about y'all. Really? And how will that help us? The conversation gets stopped right there. Well, it would help others to understand you and understand your community and what's changed and what's changing. But while you do that, it's still changing. And how we're going to stay here as the changes happen. Are you going to take those maps down to those guys downtown and help them to realize that instead of permitting the people to build where you know you're going to later tell them they can't be insured and that their houses are going to shift, tell them they can't build there? Are you going to take this stuff to them? Because you're going to do that, we want to help you. And we need you to make that map tomorrow.
I swear. They're so on it.
Yes! Yes! So they said, well, good idea. Why don't we collaborate? And what we can do is, some of us specialize in geography, some of us specialize in environmental science, some of us specialize in these other fields. Why don't we all get together and then we can share the knowledge, but more than that, share the resources so that we can help you all with what you need. And say, well, we're working on this word y'all have in the Western world called sustainability. We're going to create our own Gullah Geechee Sustainability Plan. So let's create a think tank to work on such a thing. And then all these elements can start to come together. Because see that stuff that y'all got all that funding and time to do out there? We don't have time for that. We have to live. So a lot of things to us are real simple, but since you all have to study and
put your hypotheses forward first, and then you have to calculate whether or not this is fact or fiction, and you have to be peer reviewed and all of that. And that'll take another 5 to 10 years so you get through that. In the meantime, we're gonna be living here and doing what we gotta do. And so they said, well, we got you, but you know we gotta do this. I said, yeah, you gotta do your perfunctory exercises to make yourselves relevant and keep your jobs. They get it. So we all came together and we formed the Gullah Geechee Sustainability Think Tank with scientists, with natives, actual natives, all right? And we also have political people involved. We have anthropologists, sociologists, geographers. We have them all in a room together. And do you believe I taught them how to actually talk to each other, where they understand each other? They don't all use techno-speak and abbreviations? Isn't that amazing? I thought that was an act of God. And so here it is that we got them in a circle. Where? On our shore in the Gullah Geechee Nation. We took walks together, we documented things, we sat down, we ate, we sang, and we started having our fishing association even involved. We had students involved, we had professors involved, and we started engaging with the medical community because they realized those effects, not only the stress on your nerves, but the mental impacts and the physical impacts. I learned about PCBs and other things that are contaminants in the waterways, and the more that the waters rise, the more that the ocean acidifies, the more of the human health impacts that are happening, either because the seafood is now tainted or the earth itself is so dramatically being altered that certain things are no longer in different areas, so our ecology is out of balance. If our ecology is out of balance, the water quality may not be good. If the water quality is not good, how do humans ingest this water or any creature from the water and have our health be good? Not a good thing. So all of it works together if we sit together and realize that the experiences we all have bring a certain level of knowledge that we could share with one another. And it also brings new tools that you may not have had to use before. And those maps might inform that zoning department. Those maps and scientific reports might inform the insurance industry and the home builders associations and even the native community on what to do and when not to dig a hole, right? So that we can sustain this. And that will make us more resilient, and we'll spend less with big farms. Because we'll be able to just go sit on the shore and enjoy the beach, and we don't care if our top shear or not in that case, right? And so that we can relax a bit and just enjoy the sunshine. So I tried to do that a couple of times, but I did the wrong thing. I invited a couple people that share names, named Kate, to come along with me to Waterways, and I thought that this would just be a nice, comfortable place for us to chat and maybe have lunch or something and just enjoy and breathe in the air. But every time they show up and want to record things. They either are jotting notes down, they can't help themselves. I don't know if it goes with the name or just their professions or what. But I said, okay, I have to get used to these ladies named Kate, because God keeps sending them in my life. And he sent one who was a geographer, and this one was Kate Derickson. She was then at University of Georgia. She's now at University of Minnesota. And then next came one with the Union of Concerned Scientists, UCS. This one named Kate Cell. And I was like, okay, is it safe to be around anyone who's part of a cell nowadays? Don't want to get locked up into something and don't know what we're doing here. But then she seemed okay. And then I thought, okay, God, you have bookends of Kates in my life. And then said, I'm not finished yet. There's another Kate, Kate Schaefer, who was with South Carolina Coastal Conservation League. I said, well, all right, I believe in the Trinity, you can stop now. And then at every one of these environmental conferences that I go to, I end up meeting somebody there who says, hi, my name is Kate. So I do not invite them to come sit with me on the shore, because when they do that, I end up keeping them and I'm collecting Kates. So it was interesting because it seemed like each time I couldn't have more than one geographer in a room at a time with me for a minute. Then we had a couple of them on our think tank, and it seemed like I could never get Dr. Annette Watson and Dr. Kate Dickerson to be in the room at the same time. I said, there's law against the Queen having two geographers in the room together. Then they finally invited me to the AAG, the American Association of Geographers Conference, and then I had thousands of them in the room with me at the same time, and I felt better about that. Like the church, I felt some kind of way before that. So then I said, well, now, can I get the two Kates that would be in the same place? And so I think a couple of times we've had both of them in the same place now, and at conferences like this, where they get to show me why, well, we should just be relaxing here on the shore, having a nice, comfortable day. Just look at it. Breathe it in. You're not in your office. You don't have to do PowerPoint today. Just look at it. Just feel it. See what we're fighting for here. Why they still are over there. Click the little cell phones. Click. Typing a little note in. Or Siri, write this down at Queen Quet. Why are they still up to that? Well, they need to relax. Enjoy what's all around you. Be part of the circle. And then I realized what they were doing. They wanted to capture those moments while they could, because those moments were informing the very work that they could do to help us sustain our communities, to help us keep the cultural heritage and our historical legacy of that cultural heritage of the Gullah Geechee Nation literally above water, above board, and in the halls of people who normally don't get to come to the shore, but get to make laws about it, okay? And so it started dialoguing about what they could share. One of them invited me away from my nice, warm, lovely island to the freezing cold of Boston, and I started not to like her a little bit. but at least it was warm in the hotel, where we studied what people were doing all along the East Coast, and found out they'd done reports about what was happening and how the sea level was rising. But they wanted to look at what communities were resilient enough to deal with it. And then came the other Kate saying, well, I work with communities and work with them to talk about their environments and what they want to maintain, what they want to keep, what's important there. And then we can present it in different formats. I said, well, I thought geographers make maps. They said, no, cartographers, that's not the geography. We deal with all these other layers in there. And so I said, great. What layers are we going to peel back so that we can show people the multi-layers that exist beyond the buildings that we're trying to ensure? How about ensuring us that our cultural communities will be there? In all their calculations, they can never calculate the loss of cultural heritage. She said, I think we got you. It'll take me a minute to process. That's her favorite thing to tell me. But I think we got something for you. So I call them K1. That's this one. And K2. That's this one. K3 is not here. I saw her yesterday though. All right. And so I'm going to have K1 go first. She's very concerned about keeping her #1 slot. So I'm going to have K1 go first and show you what happened when she rose from the shoreline, from sitting there, taking it in, breathing in the air, and all that good stuff. To show you what happens when university people, academics, actually talk to the natives and actually appreciate and value what the natives have to offer. And then they go back and interpret it in the languages, you know, that techno-speak I mentioned, that works for the academic people as well. But it's something accessible to everyone. So, what we got? Back to Florida. Don't y'all love that title? The power of land and business. Doesn't that kind of fit with what I've been talking about? So, take it away, Kate.
Okay, so I'm going to be short, but one of the things that
This is a project that I've been working on for the past few years with some undergraduate students. I've been on the Gullah Geechee Sustainability Think Tank for a while now, and this is working mostly in South Carolina, but this is a project that we started doing with a woman named Glenda Jenkins, a Gullah Geechee woman whose family land is in Nassau County, just kind of inland from Amelia Island in Fernandina. And so many of you are probably familiar with where Fernandina and Amelia Island are. It looks very similar to this area, and when you think about and understand the history, take in the history of the place, and you think about the history of the place in the context of sea level rise, it's not a place that is identified with having a robust Black history. It has a Spanish colonial history, it has beautiful buildings, and these buildings that are important and meaningful to the Black communities and the Gullah Geechee people there are what one person told me is cinder block vernacular. These are just not buildings that people think of as beautiful buildings. They're not buildings that people think of as historical buildings. They're eyesores or they're functional buildings. And so, we think about we experience history in a whole lot of ways, but one of the ways we do it is through architecture and building. When we think about preserving it, we think about it in that way. But Gullah Geechee people are living history. Their culture and their community is an ongoing history. And the relationship is to the land and the space where they are. And so if we think about historical preservation from a Gullah Geechee perspective in North Florida, then we have to see these buildings in a new light, and we have to see these spaces in a new light. And when they, Nassau County, for a variety of different reasons, is a county that is characterized by intense development. The city county planner told me, like, we can't have another mattress store. We are building mattress stores like crazy. You know what kind of development I'm talking about. Like those, he's like, you can see 3 mattress stores standing right here. I don't quite understand what's going on there, but of course what's going on there is this massive, rapid development of new houses with lots of bedrooms and lots of mattresses that people need to buy, apparently. But that is that kind of development he was flagging for us. Auto-oriented, road-widening kinds of development. And when those road-widening projects happen, we have not only eminent domain taking of land on historically relevant or roads that have historical significance or where Gullah Geechee and Black people live and own family land, but we also have land taking for stormwater retention ponds. And that's how we started working that's how we first started doing our work with Representative Jenkins, is that she said, can you come down here and tell me what these things are? There are backhoes everywhere in our backyard, and they're digging these things out, and I don't know what they are and what they're for and what they portend in terms of the future of this place. And so we went down and we took a look, and we found, these are stormwater retention ponds, and they're building them to manage stormwater runoff from anticipated development, whether that's impervious surface for roads or other kinds of buildings. And she said, it really feels to us like these are cropping up in and around historically Black neighborhoods in Nassau County. And it turns out that she was right. So she asked us, can you tell us where these things are cropping up? And so we made a map of where the stormwater retention ponds are, but then we had to do some work to figure out how do we identify what is a historically Black neighborhood in Nassau County. So we started building this story map to kind of elevate the kind of history of the Black history of this place, a place where everybody knows American Beach, the historic beach that was home to the first Black millionaire in Florida, and
Abraham Lincoln Lewis.
And really, everybody knows the history of American Beach, but that's not the only Black history of Nassau County.
Let me plug this in, and the irony of that is he started the Afro-American Life Insurance Company, which is the first insurance company at all in the state of Florida. That I just wanted to make sure, since you brought it up, plug that in. Go ahead.
So we did, the undergraduate students and I started working together to figure out how would we how would we tell that Black history of this place. And one of the first things we started doing was talking to different, working with Glenda Simmons Jenkins on her family's land, and then looking at land use change over time, and looking at culturally and historically relevant places to the Black community. And so we don't have time for me to go through this thing, and it's not completely done, and it's not online yet, but it will be very shortly for public to see. But our goal is to give this as a tool for Glenda and for other folks who want to say, like, look, when you take this land by eminent domain, this land is meaningful and it's valuable. Maybe not beautiful to you, it might not be a Spanish colonial building, it might not look pretty, but it's meaningful and important to us, and there's history here. And so trying to make that argument and make that case. And so we did a historical, we did put together the history of, the place, and
Those guys look familiar to y'all, don't they?
and then we put together, one of the things that's really driving development in Nassau County, maybe some of you are familiar with, is the history of the company Rainier, which is the largest landholder in Nassau County. It was a turpentine and manufacturing company for a while. Now it has redirected toward a land development company. And so their history and their relationship with the county is an important part of the kind of nature of the changing landscape there. So we looked into that. We looked at how much land Rainier owns in the county itself, and land use change, all different kinds of ways of looking at land use change. We've also then have a tab that's about these Black histories that we talked about. So
And there's American Beef that she's zooming by.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to leave enough time for everything, because we're just till 10:30, right?
Yeah.
We're 10:30.
We're till noon, the thing said on my sheet. She told us 10:30 now? Oh, they changed us.
But the 11 paper, the 11 a.m. paper isn't here, and we can be fast too, so don't.
Okay,
You have
don't
at
end
least
it.
30 minutes
So
extra.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good. All right, so we're, thank,
I was just trying to make sure.
yeah, that we get it.
Thank you though.
But they gave us a letter at 12 o'clock. That's it. Nobody told me to change. But,
So I'm just trying to, give you a sense of the different kinds of things, people that we talked to and things that we looked at. This is American Beach, but there's other, down here. So we went and did a lot of oral histories with elders in the community and asked them about their land and their relationship to the land, and how these spaces that are, Fernandina Beach, and it is a tourist destination, and it's managed accordingly. It's a tourist destination, it's a snowbird destination, it's a growing area. And so how people collectively think about what this space and land is for is really different than how people, like Lawrence Holmes, for example, remembers, like his home is in between downtown and the port. And it was a place where Black families could live. It's where the Black bar was. And when you look at it today, that's not readily apparent. And so how do we make sure that the kind of connection that people have to this space is something that they can use as a way to make a kind of argument about how the future of Fernandina should be developed. We also talked about the dynamics around eminent domain and different families' land acquisition stories. And then this is the part that's been really fun, is kind of using different markers as a way to identify historically Black neighborhoods. So we went around and mapped every historically Black church or Black church in the region, because we know that Black neighborhoods built up around Black churches, or Black churches were put in Black neighborhoods. And then one of my students just got some funding to go back down and start mapping the ancestral burial grounds. Because one of the things that comes, I'm not going to stay on that one because it's really preliminary. But one of the things that comes up a lot is that there are, and this is the case in Mississippi, this is the case in South Carolina, this is the case in North Florida, that people aren't able to access burial grounds because they're on private property. And so people, you guys probably in this room probably know this better than anybody else, but there's no markers there. And even though these are relevant, culturally relevant, historically relevant spaces, I worked in Mississippi, in Turkey Creek, for example, and they just built condos over it. And so, but identifying these places as ancestral burial grounds creates, it is a tool for kind of staving off different forms of development. And so what we're hoping to do with this is resource the folks in Nassau County who are interested in tweaking the narrative, changing the narrative around what the history of this place is and how it matters in the context of massive and rapid environmental change and in the context of intense development. So they're really at the intersection of those two things. And the last thing I'll say is that as part of the CREATE initiative, which is an organization that's out of the University of Minnesota that I co-direct with my colleague Bonnie Keeler, we're really interested in how not only does development impact culturally relevant and historically marginalized spaces, but how does forms of green investment and greening impact communities as well. And this is something that we think that green investments, bike trails and parks and beautiful stormwater retention facilities or stormwater mitigation parks, like I said, are these kind of desirable things, a universal good, but what our research is finding is that in fact those are gentrifying forces as well. And so trying to look at as the simultaneity of development and environmental change and how historic preservation, greening, and other kinds of tools that we use to stave off those kinds of things also then create vulnerabilities and can contribute to forms of displacement. So that's what the work we're doing at the CREATE initiative that Minnesota is about, and this is a kind of sub-project of that. So I will, turn it over to Kate.
Did you use GIS?
I didn't use GIS. One of my students did.
You did, right? To do this,
We
right?
can't help it.
Yeah.
We love GIS.
Exactly. So now the interesting
Geeks
thing.
in support of Queen is what I think of GIS.
Like that. So this is the thing, is now the K1 has shown you some of the culturally relevant historic places and why our cultural heritage is so valuable to us, but how it can be shown to others who might never visit there. And can impact what decisions now the zoning departments can make, the state might make, the county might make. But what happens when they do say they're in a flood zone? Where are they getting that data? Well, there's surge, there's sea level rise. Where is that happening? Well, how's that impacting those historic resources? How do we keep them above water? What tools do we have that might help us determine where not to build and where to resource in order to keep historic places and culturally relevant places above water? So in comes K2 with the tools that they have at Union and Concerned Scientists and some reports that they've done in that regard.
All right, thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. Has everyone heard of the Union of Concerned Scientists? Do you know who we are? Okay, so.
She said no.
No, okay, so the Union of Concerned Scientists, I'm having trouble.
It's not moving.
There
There it is.
we go. We are turned 50 years old this past March. We were founded on March 4th, in 1969. We were founded by graduate students and their professors at Massachusetts Institute of Technology to work on issues at the intersection of science and democracy. And now we have programs on nuclear weapons and global security.
There it goes.
Sorry, I
There we
hate
go.
to not just stand in front of the screen. On clean vehicles and transportation, on food and the environment.
Yep, there it is. It's the angle, huh?
I guess it is.
Yeah.
And,
Do you want someone to click for
You
you?
want somebody to click for you?
I'll do, I'll just deal with it.
Alright.
Climate and energy, that's the program that I work with. I am the climate campaign manager. We are the largest program. And our newest program is Center for Science and Democracy. which is looking at a whole range of issues, including voting rights suppression, toxics in communities, a whole range of issues at that intersection, like I said before. They have a staff of over 200 people in 4 offices around the country, 500,000 supporters, including 25,000 scientists, independent scientists, health professionals, economists, engineers who work with us. And I'm just going to breeze right through this and get to the mapping. The Geeks in Service of Clean, GIS. So this is a sea level rise viewer from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And what it does, it has a slider, and you can push it up, this thing on your left, you can push it up and see what happens when we get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet of sea level rise, okay? But that's not actually how sea level rise plays out in our lives, and that's the work that we've been doing. So this actually is an historically black neighborhood, Norfolk State University in Virginia, a historically black college. And the green shows places that experience some flooding at high tide today. And this is our point about sea level rise. Way before you get to 6 feet or 2 feet or whatever, sea level rise, what you get is an expansion of the tidal zone, okay? And so it's that expansion of the tidal zone that is putting pressure on coastal communities right now. So here's that same neighborhood with 6 feet of sea level rise, which is about what we can expect by the end of this century, okay, if we continue to emit pollution at this rate. And we value this approach, and we use NOAA's data, their tide gauges all the time. Believe me, I'm not dissing NOAA, I love NOAA. But when? End of century is a long time away. Okay, so if you want to help, you got to figure out how much time do you have to act, how much do you have time do you have to work with. So NOAA sea level rise doesn't show this high tide flooding, the sunny day flooding that communities are already experiencing. So that's what we started to work on, when communities are going to start to experience this. And this is just a set of the analyses that we've been releasing on this work. In 2017, we released When Rising Seas Hit Home, which has a story map, similar to the one that Kate just showed you. Okay, and this projects tidal flooding increases under various sea level rise scenarios for the entire coastline of the 48 states. Okay, Alaska and Hawaii have different pressures, different data sets. We did a different methodology, and so we just stuck with the 48. But still, it's the whole coastline of the lower 48. So what we're talking about here really is a state of chronic inundation. Okay, this schematic shows how sea level rise causes tides to rise higher and expands the coastal zone and causes flooding in areas that are currently dry. And at some point, communities will experience frequent enough high tide floods, they'll become what we call chronically inundated. Okay? And that's flooding that's frequent enough that it causes changes. You might need to move, a city might need to invest in flood control measures, a whole range of responses might be necessary. Okay? And so in order to define this, we did a literature review, because that's what we do, but we also went into communities and talked to them about what they were experiencing now, how they were coping now, changes and decisions that they were taking now, to see, okay, where does it happen often enough that you need to make these kinds of choices? And based on that work, we define chronic inundation as when at least 10% of your buildable land is flooded at high tide at least 26 times a year. Essentially with the new and full moon, right? That's when you get the highest tides. Now that's a pretty conservative estimate, as it turns out. The city of Miami Beach, right? We know they spent like what, $500 million already committed. It does not yet meet this threshold of chronic addiction, okay, but it's already taking this kind of choices.
What about Charleston, South Carolina?
I didn't map that for you today to look at, certainly some parts of Charleston, I don't believe Charleston does yet either.
Okay.
Places that do now are mostly Maryland, Eastern Shore of Maryland, and Louisiana. Okay. And then this is science. Do y'all want to hear it? Or should I skip it? You trust us or do you want to know? Want to hear it? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's 93 tide gauges along that coastline. And we looked at all of them, and we looked at the water level that gets hit 26 times a year now. And then we added sea level rise on top of it, okay? And then we used digital elevation maps and sea level rise projections and put all those together to create this mapping tool. Okay? You all right? I'm not actually a scientist, I'm just faking it today.
You guys are close, right?
Yeah, the other team's right there, so they have,
There's some outside too, and there's some.
oh, you mean the people who are coming in the
And,
session?
and one of the other speakers, yeah. So I'm just, kind of-
Yeah.
We didn't know he was here, sorry.
Yeah.
I can do mine quickly, so,
Okay, I'll be
Yeah.
really quick.
thank you.
And then, so first we did that mapping, and then what we did was we took real estate data from Zillow, how much home values are, how much property taxes they pay, how many people live there. And we laid all that on top of the existing data. This tool is online, you can go and play in it, and I'm going to skip really quickly to show you just right where we are. So this is from the first piece. It shows areas at risk from chronic inundation in 2045 under a high emission scenario. Okay, a high emission scenario is pretty much the one we're on, and it's the one that's appropriate to use when you have a relatively low tolerance for risk, which most people do for their houses. Okay, and this shows 2100. Same scenario, okay? This shows what could be spared if we take swift, strong, aggressive action to reduce our emissions and if land ice is relatively stable, okay? Up to 85% of our coastal communities and properties could be spared chronic inundation if we act, and I mean like now, right now,
Yes.
okay? All right, and then this just shows the amount of property, the value, the number of people. I think it's really important that we not just look at home value in this, but the number of people and the percentage of tax base. Because that tells you who's going to get hurt first and worst. It tells you what essential services are no longer going to be able to be funded. It doesn't skew you towards the really expensive houses. It skews you towards people. Okay? And I think, Queen, I probably should end it there.
You're gonna end right there?
I think I should.
Okay,
I mean,
did you have your slide to show them your tool though, at the UCS site, is that on there?
I don't have a slide
Okay.
for that.
All right, but we can
But
tell
I'll
them the
show
website.
you, I'll show you. You know, I always have a picture.
She
of
looks
Queen.
familiar.
I always have a picture of Queen in my
I
presentation
didn't know.
because the point that she made, so the only other thing I wanted to say is we've been going around the country, a whole team of us have been going around the country since this report came out last summer, talking to people everywhere, talking to the Homa Nation in Louisiana, talking to African American communities on the eastern shore of Maryland, but also talking to the insurance industry, talking to realtors, talking to mortgage bankers, talking to politicians, talking to everybody that we can think of to say, look, there's a risk that's coming. So I've been to Kiowa Island to give this presentation. Kiowa Island is in the nation. It is a homeowners association, private essentially community. I've given this just the same as I've given it on St. Helena. And I've seen how the houses are built in one place or the other, okay? And I see how people are preparing themselves to be resilient over time or how they're not, okay? But one thought I want to leave you with, I encourage you to, we've been doing a lot of the same kind of work, K1. Oh, I'm sorry, I just want to go back. This is a map that one of our interns made of churches, UMC, predominantly African American churches at risk in Eastern Maryland. Okay, and this is an African American church on Deal Island, Maryland, where they've already essentially abandoned it and concreted over the grave so they won't wash away. So this slide, if you want to take a snapshot, all the tools are online, the mapping tools. The other thing I want to say is we have mapped the real estate risk and the homes at risk and the people and tax bases at risk by congressional district. All 132 postal districts along the lower 48. If you live in any of those districts, or if you have friends who do, send them here, pull that, take it to your congressperson, make them aware of the risks that our coastal communities face. We'll get organized. We'll get out of that storm.
There we go. So for all of you who want to find out more details, like we talked about with the Gullah Geechee Sustainability Think Tank, follow GullahGeecheeNation.com. So you see this right here, GullahGeecheeNation.com. You can email me from there, or you can email me from QueenQuet.com, and Quet is QUET. And then if you're interested, when we step out here, while this group comes flooding in, we'll flood out, and then we can share some more about the books that we have and other resources. If you're on Facebook, we're Gullah Geechee Nation on Facebook, and we're at Gullah Geechee on Twitter and on Instagram, all right? And so we post our videos, and we post a number of different blogs throughout the year so that you know other resources and tools that we can use to continue to keep history above water and cultural heritage alive on our coastlines. So thank y'all so much for getting up early and being here.